What's going on, you guys? I am finally back. Oop. Wow, the lens was weird. Had to clean the lens off. Didn't realize how dirty it was. What's going on, you guys? I am finally back with part 2 of the crazy big turbo stock location Subaru. And lots of questions were asked, and I hopefully can answer them. And I forgot, so the last video I posted was kind of backdated. It was just a backlog of when it was the winter and I was still working on it, because as you can tell, the car's done. Really, I don't know, to start with is, if you haven't been following my channel or are coming into this new, that is the GTX3576R Gen 2 from ATP. It is a Garrett turbo, and it is the largest size turbo that you can put in the stock location. Doesn't say that it'll actually be easy, but it'll fit. It goes there. So I was under the impression, oh, maybe people have done this before. Turns out, no. No one has done this specific turbo in this stock location and kept all of the emissions. So that is the kicker here is, oh, people are like, oh, we've done stock location before. Not with the stock intake manifold, not with the TGVs, not with all of the emission stuff other than the PCV port there. No, you haven't. You can guarantee it right now. You Google up anything with this one. This one very specifically, this is the ATP kit that came with the wastegate on top of the turbo housing. So that wastegate is not on the up pipe, that is part of the turbo. You see that? That's the 44mm wastegate that dumps right there. So anyone, I know a guy asked me, he's like, hey, did you make it work? Yes, I did. Was it easy? No. This was the most difficult process I've been through because there is no reference. This is going to be the first with this exact kit 3-inch inlet, because I noticed that there was somebody who has the 3076. It's smaller and it was external wastegate, so he didn't have that issue either. And he stuck with the 2.4 inlet. I did not. This is the 3-inch Torque Solutions inlet. So no, your hard inlet with the, so I can tell you why it costs so much. Because, like I said, there was no under reference, there's no guides. I have the Killerb inlet right there. That is the hard inlet that everyone's like, oh no, it'll fit. No, it did not. It did not fit. I proved it over and over. Then someone recommended the AMR. I bought the AMR one. Did not fit either. It's the exact same design as that. So if anyone's wondering, they're like, oh, they made FP Black's work. Did they? Because I bet you they didn't. Because this has the TGVs. If you have the TGVs, it does not fit. Not especially with the spacers. If you found anyone that did the FP Black, it was not easy, and I can guarantee you they bought the silicone inlet. They did not use that Killerb hard inlet. Why? And I'll show you why. This is not just me either. That is your TGV. That is your inlet. No matter which silicone adapter you use for the hard inlet, it will not pass that corner. And if you don't believe me, try it out yourself. You'll fail, guarantee it. So no, you're not gonna make your hard inlet fit with this size turbo, even with your FP Black. You're gonna have to use that silicone inlet if you're staying stock location. Especially if you're still using the stock inlet or stock intake manifold. I had to use the largest, I don't know if you can see that. That is the largest 19mm phenolic spacer you can buy for the intake manifold. It'll work. Is it easy? No. Because the problem is, I don't know if you could even see that. Can you see how wet those TGVs are? That is the fuel squirting on top of the TGV phenolic spacers. If they're soaking, that's not That's normal, because where else is your fuel going to sit? Because that's your fuel rails. Here, I have 1700 cc injectors. Obviously, they're going to get wet, so it's kind of weird. You get weirded out because you think you will sit there and think you have a fuel leak. I sat there troubleshooting. Turns out that's normal. So if you have phenolic spacers that big, you'll notice they kind of get wet, especially on heavy loads with gigantic injectors. That's just the way it is. I didn't know until after. Torque Solutions actually makes billet aluminum versions of that, so lessons learned. I also bought the 6mm, 8 and 9. I can't remember which ones, but I have 3 of them. It is super hot in this garage. It is almost 100 degrees outside, so I'm trying to make this video short because my GoPro is going to overheat before I can even finish this. So that's what it took to get the inlet to work. Spacers, and then I had to switch out to 5 by 120mm bolts. You have to get the zinc plated. The problem with the bolts that came with it is this: if you don't get the zinc plated one, see how rusty that got? That was in there for like a week and it was already rusting. So make sure you get the zinc plated 120s. I'm still in the process of switching. You also have to get newer intake manifold bolts. The ones that are on the car originally are fine, but I would recommend getting new ones because the stress you're going to be putting onto the bolt when you're torquing them down, because it's not meant to have that much force on it when you're torquing it down. That's just not how it is. I have all kinds of equipment underneath it. I still have the harness there. I still have the aftermarket fuel railing. So you're going to put a lot of tension when you're bolting it down. And if you get new ones, it's for one, it's good to have extra set because you will break one. Guarantee you will break one. And then the other thing is making sure you have the right correct size lines. So the one thing I noticed is the AOS from IAG, your coolant lines are not the right size, or at least the inner diameter is not the right size. So you'll run into this. I just used that ear clamp, and then as soon as I started the car, it leaked. So instead of taking apart all the lines, I added worm clamps on all of the lines. So if you can see, I have 2 clamps on there. I have the ear clamp, and then I have the worm clamp on both. Because guess what? They're not the right sizes. It's really hard to find, so I just clamped it extra tight, made sure it's not leaking coolant. You know, typical Subaru stuff. It leaks. So the other thing, oh gosh, it's so hot in here. I'm gonna have to take a break here in a second to cool down the camera. Actually, I'm gonna do that right now. Give me 1 sec. All right, I stuck the GoPro on the air conditioning for like 5 minutes. Hopefully it'll stay recording long enough to get this video done because it is hot. I want to get inside. So that was the other issue I ran into. The other thing that you're gonna have to do, so your Grimmspeed boost controller, the fittings, the vacuum line nipples are too small. So you have to get the upgraded, I think it's like a 1/4 inner diameter one. So weirdly enough, Grimmspeed doesn't sell it, Cobb does. So if you're wondering what size those fittings are, get the Cobb upgraded lines, because if you guys remember, originally I had vacuum lines. I had these vacuum lines because these vacuum lines are the only ones that'll fit here. And then especially with your wastegate, your blow-off valve, the vacuum lines are thicker or bigger inner diameter than your stock lines. And to make that work, I had to use adapters to shrink down the vacuum line, and it caused leaks, like it caused vacuum leaks. So when you have to add adapters to shrink down the vacuum line, to go from this size to that size, you give yourself more areas to leak. So make sure you upgrade that. Make sure you upgrade the nipples on the fittings there. Same thing, just make sure they're at least close to your wastegate size, your blow-off valve size. And then I also have like the boost gauge. I have the fuel pressure line there. So you got to make sure they all match. That is one thing. Again, when it comes to a custom build of this magnitude, when you're going full custom, everything's custom. It gets expensive. because your build is not going to match someone else's build, but I can at least give you a general idea of something that hasn't been done. Why? Because I'm an idiot and I decided to keep all the emissions when everyone's like, you should delete the emissions. I have the, obviously TGVs, I have the air pump. So if anyone's wondering, I have the Killerb coolant reservoir and window washer fluid. So you get rid of your gigantic tank there, and it's one whole unit. The problem is I have the coil radiator here. It's thicker. So when you put the coil radiator in, you have no room here. So all you guys with Subarus will know that I am missing the whole plastic shield. Turns out that is all 3 pieces. So that is the bottom half of your air pump. If you can see that, I have broken it in half. All I did was snap it in half because the bottom half is just an air baffle. Your air pump is separate and it connects to that top line here. As long as you're not causing any vacuum leaks, it doesn't matter how it's positioned. So I just snapped it in half, made this, mounted this exactly where it needed to, and then I kind of tucked this underneath and then attached the fitting there, the hose. So it's sealed, it works. The other, so now this is flushed up against here, but it fit. Coil radiator, Killerb, coolant, and window washer fluid. The other thing I did was I got the lightweight race battery, or I say race battery, it's not a race battery, it's a freaking motorcycle, ATV, sports utility vehicle, off-road vehicle battery. You know why? I know that is because when I went to Batteries Plus to ask them for that battery, they thought I was nuts. They're like, you have a Subaru, why are you wanting this battery? I had to bring the guy outside to show them I wasn't buying the wrong battery. So that is the battery. It is a pain in the butt. It is causing misfiring issues. It's causing electrical issues. And then my fuel pressure regulator, that is also causing issues. So especially with 1700cc injectors and how big this fuel system is, because I have the -8 and -6 lines all the way to the tank. So I have the Walbro 535. It is pumping crazy amounts of pressure and it's overrunning the system. So you have to run -6 minimum return, -8 feed. That is unfortunately, I don't know if this is just too old. I got this fuel regulator. It's the A1000 from Aeromotive. It's not working. It's working. But the new radium, which oddly I got. So yes, I'm going to replace that. So anyone I know a lot of people are like, oh, that goes underneath your car. Radium makes a bracket. I know they do. It was on back order for 2 months and I wasn't going to wait another 2 months to start this car. It's here, see? Radium bracket, so that will mount underneath the car by the steering wheel column, and then the filter will go there. I have the new radium, new radium fuel pressure regulator. The best part about that one is it has a fuel dampener. So if you guys are having weird idling issues and you can't figure it out, it's possibly one ground, obviously if you go through the troubleshooting, make sure you don't have vacuum leaks, make sure your grounds are good. If you can't figure that out, make sure your fueling system's right. Mine is old because it's used. So I'm replacing it with the new radium fuel pressure regulator. It comes with a fuel dampener built in. So if you remember on the Subarus, the IAG fuel rails, they have a port where you can install fuel regulators, fuel dampeners on them. It's the fuel pulse dampeners. So with the gigantic injectors, so if you go 1700 above, you'll have that. You'll have the pulsing issues at idle, especially when it's flowing back and forth. The flow dampeners are supposed to help with the pulsation and get your idle in control. My car will idle just fine. As long as you let it sit long enough, it'll fix itself. And I think part of it too is all the fuel sloshing back and forth, the pulsing. So that is something I'm gonna fix with that new regulator. Part of it too was I was having issues with electrical. I hooked up the interstate battery, the stock one. My electrical problems went away. This battery just doesn't have enough juice to get this car cranked over, because the more, it's on E85. I crank it over, it takes too much to crank over. I'm using up a lot of the battery's juice. Now your alternators are working double time to recharge that right after you started the car. So you know everything's hooked up to it. I have my fuel pump. The fuel pump's wired directly to the battery. I have the helo horns. Everything's hooked up. So you're using up a lot of your accessory power just on startup. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you're going to go that route. I'm actually going to switch back. Yes, it sucks because battery and the bracket alone to hold it is a couple $100, $300-400 in total. And then you got your regular size battery, so I'm going to be putting the stock size battery back in just to get that headache done. Ugh, my battery's almost dead, so I'm gonna have to make this quick. So those were the other things that people asked. iWire kit. Here's the ground. So remember, I told you wiring issues. I bought the iWire kit. This is the official iWire bracket. So it mounts to your body. You got grounds here. Okay, so the battery died and the camera overheated again, so I had to run inside. So I'll make this last little bit as quick as possible because it is hot in here. So, I was talking about the iWire ground. You need the iWire grounding kit if you have removed other items. In my case, so if you're deleting your TGVs and everything else, and you have to put in spacers, which you do have to put in spacers, so no matter what, you need spacers for the IAG railing because you'll be hitting your oil AVCs pump there. So no matter what you do, if you have aftermarket railing, you still have to have spacers. The problem with that is your main wiring harness gets its ground from your intake manifold right here. So when you do that, you reduce your ground. I have the 19mm phenolic spacers, which are huge. So yeah, it makes it worse. So iWire, they make the wiring harness for your ground strap. So this usually mounts down here where your flex fuel, if you have Cobb, your flex fuel sensor is there. So this technically usually mounts here in that area, but I put it on the body ground. So technically, what happens is you mount this piece here to right behind where the flex fuel sensor goes, and then you run one of the lines to your body ground. So that will actually feed to the same ground that goes to your battery terminal. So you're sharing a full ground, like you're completing this full circuit there. And then it splits off your ground to your block, your alternator, your intake manifold, and I believe the last one goes to, I can't remember where the last, oh no, that's it. Those are it, my bad. I'm adding more than there is. So you give yourself the extra grounds to your block, to your intake manifold, and your alternator. So if you're running into grounding issues, get the iWire kit. Definitely helps, especially when you have aftermarket fuel pumps, injectors, everything. It's good to get a good ground. So that's one thing, like I was having issues. You wanted to make sure you got everything taken care of all at once. So that really concludes all the questions I was asked about how I made this work. It's not easy. It's not cheap. It's expensive, but if you want that power, of course it's going to be expensive. It's the people who think that they can make 400, 500, 600 wheel horse and not spend money that are blowing these up. And then, oh, Subaru's unreliable. Duh, you're freaking sticking 3 times as much horsepower into a car that wasn't built for that. Of course, your $5,000 mods blew up your motor. This is an IAG Stage 2 block. It's not cheap. Everything in here is not cheap, but you're still cheaper off if you decided to take the time and labor to build it yourself. You'll not only will you know every square inch of your motor, you'll be able to do the same power as a car that's 60, 70,000. So it's always a trade-off. So people who are arguing about, oh, you spent 20 grand to make it as fast as a Hellcat. Like, okay, you spent $70,000 to buy a Hellcat. And the thing is, when I pull up to a car meet, there's 30 freaking Hellcats, 30 Chargers, 30 Challengers, there's ZL1s. I'm the only blown out freaking Subaru STI. I love to see like those blown out Evos. So yes, I'm different, and I'm not saying your choice is bad. It's just you can't go in talking crap about someone who actually knows every single inch of their car versus someone who just read the pamphlet off the sticker on their car when they went to buy it. So don't be like talking trash about how much I spent on the car, especially when I did not cheap out on the parts. None of this stuff is cheap. So yeah, you can make good power, but it's not going to come cheap at all. So if you're thinking you can do this with a couple grand, no, you're lying to yourself. Even if you buy in the used market, if you want this type of power, you want a built block, you want it reliable and do that power, you're spending tens of thousands. So yes, I did spend a lot of money on this. I did most of the work around it. I can take this all apart and I know exactly what's wrong with it. I just need to get this done because it's super hot in here. I'll talk more about all the other mods. I still have to do the air vents because the air vents will go here. And heat soak is a real problem with these big turbo kits. And then I have the Cusco's rear diff brace that I need to put in. My rear diffuser needs to go in. I also have new headlights, new turn signals. This one's broken. You can see a crack in it. So yeah, a lot more to go, but in total, no, I did not spend like 60, 70,000 on it, but it wasn't cheap by any means. Wasn't easy either. So I will end the video here. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to leave a comment. If you want me to explain more about all the parts that I chose specifically, like especially the clutch. I know people were wondering why I chose the stage 2 sprung clutch instead of getting like a twin disc clutch. And like I said, I'll go more into that in a different video when I start to do the new suspension and then fix the fueling. But yeah, as you can tell in some of the shorts, it's already running. We're close to being done on the revisions. At the end, this turbo is going to be doing 32 pounds of boost, and then that's where I'm going to leave it. I know they can do more, but safely, I'm going to do 32 pounds, keep it at 32 pounds running E85. But yeah, that is where the car is at, and I will keep doing more videos, not just on my car, but everyone's car. You've seen them all. Hopefully, the Evo is back up and running, and not just my buddies. There's 2 other Evos that are really crazy that I want to do videos on. There's so many people that I love their cars and I need to finish their videos and a dyno video that I still need to put together. So I will catch you guys in the next one, and hope you guys enjoy the video. I'll talk to you guys later.